InnerQuest explores various pathways through which you can connect with the infinite wisdom of the universe and apply it to personal, professional, and spiritual growth. This program, featuring accomplished practitioners, educators, and authors, is provided by Infinity Foundation, an innovative center for holistic studies and research. We invite you to share this journey with us.
Hello, welcome to InnerQuest. My name is Jay Stone, your host for today, and our guest is Cary Weldy. Welcome, Cary.
Hello, thank you.
All right, well, let me tell you a little bit about Cary. Cary's the president and CEO of Cary Weldy, LLC, a design and construction firm headquartered in Chicago. Cary has worked on projects nationwide, including a penthouse in the Four Seasons in Austin, Texas, and the design and construction of a 7,000 square foot penthouse in Trump Tower, the highest residence on 6 continents. And so today we're going to talk about energy work. And you wrote this book. I think it came out last year. You want to say a few words about this book?
I did. I wrote Spiritual Values in the Workplace when about 15 years ago, actually, and published it online. I was working for GE at the time.
And what were you doing for GE?
I was doing technical sales marketing in Detroit, in automotive land. Mm-hmm. And I really started witnessing through my working for 12 years in Fortune 500 companies the things that didn't make sense to me, that were uncomfortable. And I thought there's a better model. So I started thinking about what about spiritual values and employing them into the workplace. So I wrote that book and published it with Hay House.
And were you practicing some of the spiritual values while you were working in corporate America?
Oh, sure. Yeah, certainly.
Do you want to talk about a few of those spiritual values?
Well,
or some of the more important ones?
Right. Well, creativity, being in the moment is very important. Meditation is a really great way to start one's day and to really get in the moment and get quiet. A lot of times, you know, some of the best answers and creativity come from doing that.
Okay.
And they just bubble up. Yeah.
Well, and meditation and creativity go hand in hand because when we meditate, it does enhance creativity.
It sure does.
And when people have some sort of a mental or emotional block, the best thing they could possibly do is meditation, because they'll get the inspiration and the idea that helps them get over the hump.
Yes.
So tell our audience about how your path led you to your energy work.
Well, I decided to leave the corporate world when I moved to Chicago, and after about a year and a half, I started my contractor business and started designing and building interiors. You know, little tiny jobs at first, bathrooms and kitchens, and now homes. And I used a lot of my engineering background. I like to say that I think like a scientist, so I always want to know the principles behind whatever I'm doing, whether I'm building something, designing something, or doing any of the spiritual work or the energy work. And some of the great architects and artists of the past, like Michelangelo and Da Vinci, knew a lot of secrets, and I started delving into energy and around the body and healing work about 25 years ago, and studied polarity energy work and how energy runs in the body and around the body. And then I started to realize that the masters of art and architecture, for example, and the designers of the great pyramids knew these secrets that also could evoke energy, and that affects our biology. And so I began studying those. And in my design work, I use the golden mean and the golden ratio, the divine ratio, for example.
And our audience might not know what the golden mean or divine ratio is.
The golden ratio is the ratio of 1 to 1.618. So the masters knew that.
Is that half a pi, by the way? Oh, no, it can't. Well, it could be.
It's phi, yeah. So that ratio of 1 to 1.618, when it's drawn, exudes an energy field that I call divine or beneficial energy. So there's basically two forms of energy. There's toxic energy or there's beneficial energy. And what I do is I like to study how to analyze that and how to measure the energy quality, and that's what we're talking about here.
Can you actually get an objective measurement of toxic and beneficial energy?
Absolutely, yeah. The science of radiesthesia, which I use dowsing rods a lot, and I use pendulums, different kinds of pendulums. Basically what you do is you calibrate your body to a scale. And there's various wavelengths and different kinds of energy that come off of radiation, for example, or electromagnetic fields. So I know how to measure that, and I can determine whether a source of toxicity is coming from electromagnetic field, or geopathic stress, or a banker line, for example. That's an energy line that naturally comes out of the earth.
What's geopathic stress?
Geopathic stress it comes from the word disease of the earth. And geopathic stress could be simply an underwater stream that moves. So anytime you have a current, it produces electromagnetic field, and that affects our biology.
Even if it's a current of water?
Even if it's a current of water. So we know about electric blankets, for example, and not to sleep with them on.
Or high tension transmission
or not
line.
To get, yes, and it's a very real problem. And as an engineer, I can appreciate the science behind it. But anytime you have a current, it'll produce electromagnetic field around it, and you can measure how far that is. You could take a Gauss meter, for example, and measure the impact of having a television set on in your bedroom, and how far that energy comes out, and how it dissipates until it gets out to the other side of the room. And that's important.
Well, and you bring up a good point. Even when the TV's off, if you have one of these flat screen TVs, it's still emitting some electromagnetic waves.
And we don't think of things like even our lamps, because anytime there's a current going through a wire up to the bulb, that also emits an electromagnetic field that is harmful to the body. We're talking about a lot of these are man-made energies. And what I like to do is study how to harmonize them, because I know that that impacts biology.
I just had a light bulb moment. I want to thank you.
All right.
In my bedroom is where the electrical box is, where all the fuses or the circuit breakers are. And rather than sleep with my head towards the electrical box, I've always slept the other way. Now I know. You know, and I never thought of that until you mentioned that.
It makes these kinds of things make a big impact on our health. Whenever I design and build a space, I just finished a kitchen, which was part of a whole home renovation in a condo down in Chicago in the Gold Coast area for a client. And the client divulged to me that she was having trouble sleeping. She'd wake up after 3 or 4 hours. And I went in and tested her bed. First of all, I have the ability to bring someone's bed here or an energetic body here and measure where the person is sleeping, essentially, which is a lot of fun. So that's a method called bilocation, where I bilocate or relocate it energetically here. But I actually went into her bedroom and I measured, and I said, I know which side of the bed you're sleeping on and which side of the bed your husband, Bob, is sleeping on. And I showed, and Bob sleeps kind of a bit closer to the middle of the bed, and I said, he's a bed hog. But then I started measuring the invisible fields, what I call subtle energy fields. They could be Banker lines, Hartmann lines, Schumann lines, Cary lines, which are very distressing to the body. That's part of geopathic stress. It's a grid that emanates from the earth, and they're running through our homes. And if it happens to be running through the bedroom, which is of great importance to me and concern, then I want to, first of all, find them, and then I make a prediction about how it's influencing the body, and then I harmonize it. And now she's sleeping a lot better.
And how long ago was this?
2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm sure that's having a positive effect on her day-to-day energy and her productivity and her mood and her ability to focus and concentrate. Yeah, we need our sleep.
Yes.
And I'd like to add, I'd visited your website, and was it your condo that was featured on HGTV?
My condo was, the previous one.
Yeah, and HGTV, I assume Home Garden TV?
Home and Garden Television, yeah. And then I filmed another I did several shows with them, but the last one that I did, I hosted a show where I put 4 condos together into one home in the Gold Coast. And
so you gutted them
I gutted
all?
4. I combined them into one home, and yes.
Well, I'd encourage the viewers to check out your website and you know, because you're talking about this, but once you watch that camera go from room to room, it's quite impressive. Now, before the show, you were telling, you did a small demonstration how you can align energy.
Mm-hmm.
You think you can do that for our audience?
Yeah, sure. The technique that I'm going to share with you is called rotation. And when you look at a simple object like a cube, this can be represented by a mathematical equation. And a sphere can, and a point can, and a circle can. So we find that this has a certain frequency of energy. And when you get to more complex objects like this whole combination of silk flowers plus the vase, and then the whole room and the drapery, it gets to be a very, very complex mathematical equation, but one nonetheless. So what happens is, I can rotate this around in a circle, and at a certain point, the frequency of energy relative to the rest of the space will harmonize. Mm-hmm. And my pendulum, this particular pendulum that Dr. Karim came up with, measures, I call it divine energy or beneficial energy. So I can put it in a neutral state, and what I'm doing is I'm scanning, and my body is responding. So this is not witchcraft or voodoo or anything like this.
Yeah.
This is my body sensing the energy, and Einstein talks about this in some of his work. So I put this in neutral, and then I rotate this vase and this floral arrangement around, and as soon as it starts picking up beneficial energy from here,
I can see it's changing slightly.
It'll start rotating clockwise. Okay, see that? So what my body did, and I can't even feel it, I'm now more sensitive to energy, but initially your body is sensing this. So my body is sensing the subtle energy field coming from it. And I keep rotating it until I get it a stronger field. So just by rotating that, there we go. Mm-hmm. And that's really strong right there.
Well, and it's interesting because now you have the flower facing out, and
yeah,
and this flower here is coming right at me, and you've got one at you. Now, I've studied pendulums and used pendulums. Do you have to calibrate the pendulum? Does everybody's calibration turn out to be the same?
Not this particular pendulum. If I'm doing work and scanning a body, mm-hmm. Every person has their own wavelength. So it's a neutral pendulum that I use for that, and I keep dropping the ball and the string until I get to the person's frequency. Then I can start testing the body for a lot of things. And
so do you do some alignment and balancing work?
I do, yeah. I use signatures, for example, in the body. They're very powerful, and what I can do is essentially track any disease in the body, virtually any disease in the body. And I did this with a previous trainer who came in. He's 31 years old, now 32. And he walked into my home where he's training me, and he had a huge spot of eczema right here, which is, I published that on my site. And I said, what is that? And he said, it's eczema. It's about the size of a silver dollar. I said, how long have you had that? He said, for 20 years. And I said, do you mind if I scan your body and you have 5-10 minutes after the session, and I'd like to find out what signature your body needs. Now, a signature basically is a path of energy mm-hmm. in paper form, in two-dimensional form. But it's a three-dimensional signature that's collapsed into a two-dimensional, so it's printed on paper. And I found out which signature his skin needed, and I used a neutral pendulum, calibrated his body, and then found out which one it was. And he came back 2 days later, and basically his body absorbed it. And I can tell how long it takes to absorb. It usually takes about a minute or two, because the pendulum swings, and then it starts slowing down. Mm-hmm. And I can tell the absorption rate then starts calming. This is the first time I'd ever used a signature like this that Dr. Karim had come up with. And he came back 2 days later, and it already started scabbing over, and I photographed that again. And 2 days later, he came back on day 5, and it was very much, probably 80% healed. 2 months later, it was gone.
And did you ask him for like a personal report? You know, any other changes? I'll give you an example. Dr. Maxwell Maltz, who was a plastic surgeon,
Yes.
he would do plastic surgery on people who were disfigured in a fire or born with a birth defect, and he said he'd noticed that their personalities changed. They're more positive and upbeat and outgoing. So I'm wondering if this person whose eczema disappeared also had some personality or mood or behavioral changes.
I don't know about that. I do know that his client base increased, but I can't relate the two, you know, and I'm not going to pretend to say that it affected it, but it may have.
Yeah, and now are you aware of any studies or research or anecdotal evidence as to how long a healing like this could last?
Well, so far it's been 1.5 years.
Okay.
So I have pretty good track record with my clients in terms of, you know, how a space will change their biology or affect their biology. And basically what I do is I harmonize the area around the body. And I'm not going to call it healing. What I do is I harmonize the energy around the body, and the body allows itself to heal. You know, we live in an intelligent body, and all I'm doing is using a means of communication. You see, shape is the language of the universe. We really don't hear that too much, but it really is. You think about when you taste food, and the food particles lay on your tongue. What it is it's indicating it's finding the shape. And so then you make an interpretation that that shape is sweet, and this one is salty, because it has a different shape and how it lays on that. And molecules communicate the same way, the way they pair up in proteins. So when we know how to communicate with shape, like this, I just changed the whole energy in this room. Probably 75% of this whole room is flooded now with beneficial energy.
I'm glad we did that early in the show. And so, like, being attracted to another person, shape has to do with how it's, what we perceive with our eyes, and how it, or even pheromones. I assume the shapes of pheromones are different for different people.
And I'll give you another example with rotation. Normally, as a designer, I would have, you know, I bought an orchid, and I would normally put it this way, where if the majority of the room and the viewpoint is from this direction. But I rotated it, and at this point, where it was towards the majority of the room, it flooded the whole room with energy. And that orchid lasted over 5 months. And normally, orchid blooms last 6 weeks, 8 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're aligning the optimal life force for that particular orchid.
That's what it is. It really is. And I could take a live plant too, and I've done this in my home. I took 2 live plants, bought them the same day, and I put one in a window so it was getting much more light, and another one in the corner of the room. Well, we know that when we have a 90-degree corner that it pushes out what's called a carrier wave. And what that plant does, plants exude divine energy because they come out, it's shaped like a torus, the root system, but also the energy flow is that way. The plant wants to be in the corner of the room. Why? Because it's conscious, first of all, and it knows that it's benefiting you. And the one in the corner flourished much more than the one in the window.
And even though it was getting less light?
It got considerably less light. It was probably 20 feet away from the nearest window.
Now, you held this, I don't know, what do we call this, crystal? Or
It's a cube. It's a plexiglass cube.
Is this
acrylic cube.
Does this have any special properties? Or is it something that you designed? Or
Dr. Kareem did that, and that actually sends out beneficial energy.
I could feel the power in it.
Can you really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's good. You're sensitive to it.
Yeah. And how does Dr. Kareem spell his name in case our audience want to research it?
Ibrahim Kareem, Ibrahim, and then Kareem is Karim.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, they've done studies. Here's one where you take the cube, and I'm a musician. I've studied trumpet and piano. And if they've done this with a musician without them knowing it, but they took the cube and said, okay, now, and they set it up right, and they said, now, sing your range or play your range. They did with the trombonist too. And they had a certain range, and then they tilted it sideways where it basically does not send out beneficial energy. And it was considerably a lower range. Then they tipped it up again and set it up, and had the vocal range was much higher, as was the case with the trombonist.
Well, isn't a cube equal in, all the sides equal?
Yeah, it has to do with the signatures that are on here and being upright.
Okay.
I'm developing a workout routine with a trainer right now, and here's an example. I measure the aura from the body because I want to know what position or what direction, if you're lifting something, is best for you. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you which one that is. And I also know that when I laid down a body, for example, and this is positional energy, that the aura is not as strong. It's very interesting.
And have you noticed an improvement in your workouts since you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And what kind of exercise do you do? Lifting weights, is it?
I do weights, yeah. A lot of breathing,
okay.
Cardio. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And face in a certain direction, like north, will expand the aura of the body, and you'll bring in much more energy into the body. And if you're stretching, though, yeah. I always like to face west, because that's a expelling type energy.
Okay.
So it's working with the natural energies around us where we can benefit our bodies.
Now, does the time of day and the position of the sun have anything to do?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Be a good test, though, huh?
Yeah. Well, I recently interviewed Dr. Dawn Silver on astrology, and so she brings in the position of the planets and the sun and how it affects the psyche and the soma and the collective unconscious.
Well, there is a lot of research about people that wake up, between 4 and 6, and it has to do with the energies coming from the earth that are most beneficial. That's a pretty clear study.
Cary, would you like to do another demonstration?
Sure. I studied a lot about Dr. Masaru Emoto's work, and I got to meet him in St. Petersburg about 3 years ago. And he did wonderful work where he took words like love, peace, joy, very beneficial words that have a lot of beneficial energy, and he taped them on a glass of water. Then he'd freeze it. And he's a scientist and he likes to study water. Now, as a chemical engineer, I know that water has very unique properties. It's the only one substance that we know on this planet that exists in all 3 states, solid, liquid, and gas. It also is unique because when it freezes, it expands. There's very unusual properties with water. Water's conscious. Now, we don't think of it as being conscious, but it is. And the great masters have known this for thousands of years.
Well, without water, there can be no existence of life, whether it be a flower, an insect, etc.
It's highly responsive to energy. It's highly responsive to our voices. It's highly responsive to our thoughts. I'm going to show you how that is.
Well, before you do that, I have a question. And, I believe in Dr. Morimoto's work, but I've heard that they debunked his work, that, they proved it's, an urban myth, or maybe that they didn't disprove Dr. Morimoto, but they couldn't validate or prove what he was saying. Are you aware of any, counter-argument to that? Or?
Well, the polluted waters where he's worked, many of them have been restored. And he basically did what many of the masters did in talking and speaking to the water and commanding the water.
Now, I was unaware that he restored polluted waters. I know that.
He's done a lot of it.
I mean, when I was a kid and you were going to Lake Michigan, you couldn't. You stepped in, you didn't see your feet. Now you go in Lake Michigan, you can see 20 feet down. But we didn't have the great Dr. Morimoto here cleaning it up.
Yeah, his work is wonderful and
important. 2/3 of Earth is water.
Yeah. It follows our bodies, which is about 70% of our body is water as well. Yeah. So we know that water is very absorbent, and it's constantly absorbing energy. And I can measure the amount of the breadth of divine energy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to approach this little bottle of water on the corner, and I'm going to measure how far the energy is that's beneficial. Okay, so at the point when it closes, which is basically not much at all, there's not a lot of what I call divine energy in there. There's specific rays that I could talk about, but it just is too complex.
And by the way, I want to know, and I'm sure some of our audience want to know, what the heck you holding?
These are dowsing rods, and dowsing rods are used by the plumbers that in the city of Chicago. They find underwater pipes because, again, they can...
So if we went to a plumbing store, we'd be able to find those?
No. They probably don't sell dowsing rods, but they're much more commonly used in Europe, and farmers use them all the time to find water for their crops. So again,
I've seen with like sticks.
Yeah, yep. Some people call them witching rods or divining rods, but really, truly, what it is, there's nothing crazy or magical about it. What it is my energy body will feel it, and they'll tilt in. I'm exaggerating, but my hands will literally tilt in subtly as soon as I move into an energy field that I'm scanning.
Okay, that's great.
Okay, so what I can do now is I can chant, the Lord's Prayer, Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So that's a portion of the Lord's Prayer. And now I'm going to see how much divine energy comes from the water. And I get, I'm scanning this now, and I'm getting close. Right there. So if you're clairvoyant, what this looks like is a ball of light that's about this big. And then I can chant Om, Om, and I can say love, peace. So what I'm doing is, I'm kind of doing what Dr. Masaru Emoto did, Instead of writing the words and the energy gets absorbed into the water, my vibrational energy is absorbed.
Well, I also,
And see, now it comes out to here. See that?
Yeah. Which just goes to show what our thoughts do, because our bodies, as you say, 70% water.
Yes.
And so our thoughts are affecting the water in our body.
Yes.
And so the more positive, the healthier,
yes,
the more universal the thoughts, the better we are. We've got a minute to go, and we've only got a fraction of information. Anything you want to say in this final minute?
Well, I've got products that I've designed, and this is a 19-karat amethyst necklace, and it produces a protective field around the aura.
The necklace you're wearing, I was admiring. Is that something you designed as well?
No, this is a piece of jewelry that Dr. Kareem actually came up with. It has biosignatures that are beneficial for the body.
Any other jewelry you want to show?
This is a prosperity ring that I've co-designed with a jewelry designer. She's amazing. This is stainless, and it's ruby, and there's a particular finger that you wear it on, and what it does is it activates the base chakra, which we know has a direct correlation to prosperity. It deals with security. And then I've got headboards and furniture that I've developed, and a lot of different things like that.
Well, I wish you the best of luck. For more information about Cary, the Infinity Foundation, the Inner Quest talk show, stay tuned to the credits at the end. Until next time, wish you good health, good spirits, and of course, good fortune. Thank you so much, Cary. It's been a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
For more information about this show, our guests, Infinity Foundation, or any of our other programs, please visit our website, infinityfoundation.org, or call us at 847-831-8828.